Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. I don't know what that was, but welcome back, guys. First of all, Merry Christmas. It is a Christmas day today, the Christmas day today. But we're going to be covering a FutureFight video. Sorry there hasn't been any videos recently. I've recently been packing up for moving and stuff like that, so been getting everything under wraps with that. I am still in the process of packing up and moving and doing all this crazy stuff going into the new year, but I figured I finally had time between this channel and my other channel to sit down, record some videos for this channel so that you guys can get your card game hype going, so to speak. A lot of you have been hitting me up about videos or whatnot. But yeah, we're gonna get right into the FutureFight Vanguard video. Today we're gonna be talking about the newest set that's gonna be coming out next in English, which is V-EB04, the Answer of Truth. So this set contains Gear Chronicle, Genesis, and Great Nature. So we're gonna be talking about all the standard decks that you can play coming out of that set, and cool combos, cards you need to know about, things of that nature, and deck lists, and view some games as well. If you guys want to check out our sponsor, be sure to check the link down below, or they should be up here above me. They're Dabbers Cards and Games. It's a local card shop focused in Georgia. They have a lot of cool merchandise from Japan, and they almost always have cards when the set drops for you guys to buy at competitive prices. So be sure to check them out down in the description below. And with that being said, let's get right into the video. So today we're talking about the Gear Chronicle deck, like I said before. So let's get right into it. So obviously we don't have an extra deck because this is not premium, it's standard. So let's talk about our grade ratios. So we run 4 Interdimensional Dragon, Mystery Flare Dragon. This is our grade 4 of the deck. Gear Chronicle has this weird thing where, because they're the stride focus deck, or they're supposed to be the stride focus deck, they actually get grade 4s in the main deck. Now we did see this with Exculpate the Blaster and Novell, but Gear Chronicle is the deck that is supposed to be focused on that. So we run 8 grade 4s actually. Mainly because we always want to get them out of our deck with our grade 3, that is Lost Legend, and we don't ever really want to run out of grade 4s to use with Lost Legend's effect, so we run as many as possible to fix that problem, because a lot of times, even if you run like 7, which is something that I was trying for like a long time, if you run 7, you might just draw into all of them, or you might have really bad hands where you, like really bad games where you just draw into all of them and you can't actually do the stride skill of Lost Legend, which is kind of crucial to helping this deck keep going the way that it does. So let's talk about Mystery Flare Dragon. It has a Vanguard only effect that says when placed, activate all the effects, or activate all of the effects below according to the sum of the grades of the face-up cards in your bind zone. So if you have, so let me explain that. A lot of people think that that means the number of cards in your bind zone. It means the grade total of your bind zone. So if you have 2 grade 3s in your bind zone, you're actually at number 6, or level 6, I like to call it, for this effect. So obviously Mystery Flare has 4 different effects. So if you have 3 or more in the bind zone, so if you have a grade 3, or 3 grade 1s, or a grade 2 and a grade 1, whatever, if you have 3 or more grade total in your bind zone, this unit gets +1 drive, giving it triple drive, which would make it a regular stride. Then if you have 7 or more, it gets +1 critical, a little more pressure to your opponent. A lot of times in the mid game, you'll be just having a crit and an extra drive, because it's kind of hard to reach that threshold of 13 sometimes. But it is really easy to reach the threshold of 7. So most of the time you will have a critical and a drive when you go into this card. Then we have 13 or more. 13 or more is 6 of your units get plus 10,000 power, so you want to make sure that you play all your cards on the board before you actually use Lost Legend skill to stride into this if you have 13 or more, because you obviously want to give 6 of your units 10,000, and you would have to activate it immediately when Mystery Flare is placed on the Vanguard circle. And then we have 19 or more, which gives it kind of an ability, which is at the end of the turn, you discard your entire hand and you get an additional turn. However, you cannot ride during your last turn. So because you can't ride, it kind of just gives you a kind of handicap but against your opponent, but you discard your entire hand too, so it's kind of like up in the air about whether that's really good. Now I will say I only played one game ever out of like 20 games where I reached 19 or more, so I just don't think that reaching 19 or more is very probable, even with me running 8 grade 4s. Like, I bind my grade 4s most of the time for my bind effects, and binding 5 grade 4s gets you to the 19 or more, so definitely when you're binding cards, you want to bind Idealized Dragon first if you can, and then bind your Mystery Flares, because that's your more powerful grade 4 that you want in the main deck at all times. Then we have our second grade 4, which is Interdimensional Dragon, Idealized Dragon. It has a Vanguard ability very similar to Mystery Flare, where it just activates abilities based on your grade count in your bind zone. So if you have one or more, your opponent chooses one of their rear guards and puts it on the bottom of their deck. This effect is not that good in my opinion, just because your opponent gets to choose. So if they're playing like Neo Nectar, they can just choose a token or something like that, or if they're playing anything else, they could just choose like a trigger or something that you don't want to go back to their deck. So kind of meh in my opinion. The 5 or more ability is call the top card of your deck to rearguard. Also meh, because what if there's a trigger on the top of your deck, then you're just forced to call the trigger, and it doesn't say call up to one, it says call the top card, so you have to call the top card, which means if there's a trigger there, sucks to suck, you just have to call it to the field and you lose a trigger from your deck, which is not what you want to do. And then 11 or more, so the 11 or more one is actually pretty decent. So the 11 or more is call 2 cards from your drop zone to rearguard circle, and 3 of your rearguards get plus 5,000 power until the end of the turn. So I like to use Idealized Dragon late if I can. I usually stride into Mystery Flare as much as I can, and then I go into Idealize when I run out of Mystery Flares, just because Idealize seems better in the late game. Mystery Flare is also good in the late game, but Idealized Dragon is really sucky in the early game, and Mystery Flare is not, because you get an extra drive. So just keep that in mind when you're playing this deck and going through your grades. Then we have 4 grade 3s, actually a very weird grade ratio for this deck, because you have to play it that way if you want to play this deck the way that it's supposed to be played, honestly. But this is the only grade 3 worth playing in my opinion. There are a couple others that have like really good effects, but they don't have force, so it's kind of like up in the air. It's up to you what you want to run. I chose consistency for consistency's sake, so I always want to ride into Lost Legend, and if I don't ride into Lost Legend, I don't want to go up to grade 3, so that's just what we did. And Lost Legend has 2 abilities. It has an activation effect during your main phase, and an auto ability when it gets ridden on Vanguard Circle as well. So when Lost Legend is on your Vanguard Circle, you can choose 1 or more cards with the sum of their grades being 3 or greater from your hand and discard them. Then you search your deck for a grade 4 card, write it as stand, shuffle your deck, and at the end of the turn you retire that unit and write a grade 3 card from your soul as rest. So Lost Legend is good for a couple reasons. First of all, it has force. Notice that none of our grade 3 or none of our grade 4s have force. So what happens is the first turn that you ride Lost Legend, you get a force marker. And then when you use Lost Legend's skill to discard either this grade 1 Wedge Move Dragon, which acts as a grade 3, because you want to discard 1 card to make this efficient. So you want to discard a grade 4 or Wedge Move or another Lost Legend so that you can stride. Or pseudo stride, as I call it. So when you're pseudo striding, you're searching your deck for a grade 4, obviously going to be Mystery Flare or Idealized Dragon, and then you're putting on your Vanguard, shuffling your deck, and at the end of the turn, this is the important part, you retire the grade 4 and you ride a grade 3 from your soul as rest. So you're obviously going to ride right back into Lost Legend, but since you're riding, you do get another gift marker. So if you ride a Lost Legend every single turn, you're getting 2 force gift markers per turn. But it's not as broken as many people think, just because you're getting the second gift marker at the end of your turn, so you won't be able to make full use of that second force marker until the next turn. However, the next turn after that, if you ride a Lost Legend, then it makes you like you're ahead, because then you have 3 force markers instead of 2, where a normal force deck, if they rerode twice, would have 2 at that point. Then its Vanguard ability, when it's rode upon, you counterblast 2 and draw a card. We don't use counterblast a lot for this deck, so you can feel free to use the counterblast 2 to draw a card every time you can get it off. I do it because it's just free plus, because why not, you know? The only other counterblast card in our deck is Retro Axe Dragon, and it really depends on if you need him or not. or if you need that grade 2 or not. So we'll get it right into that when we get down there as well. So getting right into our grade 2s, we actually have 10 grade 2s. So to make our grade ratios tight, we ran 8 grade 4s, 4 grade 3s, 10 grade 2s, and 11 grade 1s, because we don't want to ever not see our grade 1. So that's why we're running less 2s than, you know, 1s, instead of just like equal or running, you know, 11 2s and 10 1s, as I've seen some people doing. But yeah, let's talk about our grade 2s. First is Lost Break Dragon. It has a Vanguard or Rearguard ability. Says when it's placed from hand, you can bind a card from your hand and draw a card. This is very good as it gets your bind engine going and helps you dig deeper in your deck if you happen to not have a piece that you need. Like if you don't have a Lost Legend, you can dig in the early game, and if you don't have a discard fodder for Lost Legend that would make you able to just discard one card to Pseudo Stride, then you can dig a little more. Then if it's on your Rearguard circle during your turn, if you have a face-up card in your bind zone, which you always will if you're playing this card to the field, and you're using its ability, then this unit will get 3,000 power. So basically, it becomes a 13k base for the rest of the game as long as you have it on the field once you bind any card. So that's very, very good because you're able to hit other forced clans without playing a booster down, so you can conserve hand and kind of just do shenanigans as well. Then we have 4 Steam Hunter Lipid. So Lipid has a Rearguard only ability that says when it's placed from hand, bind a card from your drop zone, and this unit gets plus 3,000 power. So obviously another bind engine. All of our real bind engines are in our grade 2 lineup, as you guys will notice. So do keep track of that because your grade 2s are really, really good in the deck, and they kind of help you get to those bigger thresholds of Idealized Dragon and Mystery Flare's skills. So obviously Lipid works really well just because when she's binding a card from drop zone, so she's best after you've already pseudo strode once, because then you'll have a grade 4 in your drop zone to use with Lipid. So I kind of hold my grade 2s until I'm able to use their ability, because their abilities are very important. Even though their power gain is not very big, their abilities to bind are actually very important, so you do want to hold off to use those until you can. Then we have 2 Steam Mechanic Nabu. Nabu is a really, really good card. I wish I could run more of her, but she is the least important of the 3 grade 2s that we have, in my opinion. But she's also just really, really good with her ability, so we still do run her at 2. Her ability is when she attacks a Vanguard, you can bind a card from your drop zone, and then your opponent cannot call grade 1 or greater cards from his or her hand until the end of the battle. So it has guard restrict. Your opponent can only guard with 0s, which is not a big deal. Like, guard restrict in any manner is still good for the slick chance that your opponent just doesn't have the cards to guard with it. There was one game that I won because of Nabu. I checked 2 triggers, put it on Nabu, and I had a booster. So I was attacking for like 38, and my opponent didn't have any grade 0s in their hand, ironically. So that rarely ever happens, but when it does happen, it can clutch you some games as well. But at the end of the battle that you use that ability, you put this card into your soul, and then you draw a card. So not only does it bind a card from your drop zone, increasing your bind count, but it also moves itself into soul and draws you a card. If you're against control clans like Shadow Paladin, Kagero, even Royal Paladin, when they're playing Blaster Blade, like, you don't want them to snipe your Nabu, so your Nabu can get rid of itself and draw you a card as well. So that makes it very, very good. Moving into our grade 1s, we have 4 Wedge Move Dragon. Wedge Move Dragon is the card that I was talking about before that acts as a grade 3 when you're discarding it for any effect. So you can either discard it for a Lost Legend, or there's another card, a grade 1 that I don't run, that says if you discard a grade 3, it gives like 5k to 3 units or something like that. You could discard Wedge Move for that as well, but we just don't run that grade 1. Its Vanguard ability is when this unit attack hits, then you bind a card from your hand and draw a card. So you do the proper ride chain that you do want to do is riding Wedge Move Dragon, and then Lost Break Dragon, and then Lost Legend Dragon. That's the order that you always want to go in. It's best if you go second in this deck, in my opinion, because you do want to get Wedge Move Dragon's ability off, and the only way that you can do that when you ride a grade 1 is to go second, without staying on, you know, grade stucking yourself for a turn or something like that. Then we run 4 Promptly Worker. Promptly Worker has a Rearguard ability that says when this card is placed from hand, put up to 1 card from your drop zone to the bottom of the deck, and if you put a grade 3 or greater card back, you Soul Blast 2 and draw a card. So I like to put back grade 4s specifically with this card. It is our part of our recycle engine, and it allows us to draw a card by Soul Blasting 2 as well. However, if we can't Soul Blast 2, I like to put back triggers because it can put back triggers as well. So do be wary of what your grade 4 counts are. If you have a very high count of grade 4s in your deck, there's no need to really put back more grade 4s. You can just put back triggers if you want. I usually put back grade 4s, like I said, unless I can't Soul Blast to draw the cards, then I put back triggers. Then we have 3 Retro Axe Dragon rounding out our grade 1 lineup. Its Rearguard ability is at the end of the battle that it boosted. You can counterblast 1 and bind this unit, so it's binding itself, so it increases your bind count by 1, being a grade 1. And then you return a grade 2 from your drop zone to your hand. So basically makes your grade 2s recyclable, and since a lot of them have on place abilities, then you're able to just replay those grade 2s from your hand the next turn after that and use their abilities efficiently, which makes it really, really good. Then we have as our starter Primordial Draco Kid, just our draw card V-Series starter. Pretty simplistic. We run 8 V-Series crits, 4 V-Series draw, which is our Sentinel trigger, and 4 of our V-Series heal. So not much to say about that, but we're going to get right into the games here so I can show you guys how the deck works. And here we go. Yeah, I thought my Cardfight area wasn't going to open there for a second. Alright, so we're loading Gear Chronicle 1. Alright, so game 1 we're playing against Gold Paladin. We rode Wedge Move, and like you guys can see, like I said, it's better if you go second because we can't really use Wedge Move's ability. So we use Lost Break, we bind a card, and we use another Lost Break, bind a card. We check a draw trigger and we put it to our Rearguard, but our opponent checks a heal, so kind of makes it for naught, except we just plussed a little bit. Our opponent does do the Bone Mains Ezel combo where he rides the grade 3 before us, which is completely fine with us. Like, we're on grade 2, so it's not that big of a deal, and he does get -1 drive, so not that big of a deal. Like I said before, he uses Ezel's skill to call Den Drain, and he actually chooses to countercharge instead of draw, which is interesting because I always choose to draw just for the plus in that deck. But I do take all the damage because I just don't care. We do ride Lost Legend, put the Force on Vanguard, we counterblast 2, draw a card, and then we activate Mystery Flare. Mystery Flare has 7, so it gets a crit and triple drive. So we do attack with our Vanguard, triple drive. He takes 2 damage. Neither of them are triggers, so we attack Vanguard. At the end of the turn, we re-ride Lost Legend, get another Force marker. We PG his Vanguard. He checks a crit and a front trigger. Pretty busted. And then he calls Bunny. We do take the Bunny, and we guard the other one. We re-ride Lost Legend, getting another Force marker. And then we use the skill to stride into Mystery. Like I said, it's kind of hard to hit that 13. As you guys can see, we hit 12, so honestly I wish it was continuous because that grade 1 would make it so that, you know, we reached the threshold. But during our triple drive, we checked draw crit and put it all on Rearguard circle. Our Rearguard was attacking for 61, and our opponent simply could not guard that, so they just died. So one could say if I didn't check that many triggers, I wouldn't have won, but it's Vanguard. Come on now. We're going to check triple triggers and win. Am I right? Am I right? Yeah, we're going to win. You got to check them triggers. Who plays Vanguard and doesn't check triggers, right? I'm saying that, but I never check triggers in real life, but it's okay. But second match, we're against Kagero. We do go first again, unfortunately, riding Wedge Move. However, we do get a draw trigger on our first damage check, so his Vanguard doesn't hit. We use Lost Break skill to draw a card, and we actually do have a pretty good hand, pretty decent hand. We get another draw trigger, and we block. And we're at 4 when we go into Mystery Flare, so it just gets +1 drive. So we attack for 33, we get a crit. Our opponent takes 2 damage, getting a draw trigger and a Novell. We attack with Nabu, and this is like what I was saying with Nabu. Nabu allows us to draw a card. Our opponent actually G-assists and doesn't get a grade 3, unfortunately for them, so we do guard 1 column and let 1 column hit. We re-ride, and we use the skill to Soul Blast 2, draw, then we stride. We have 10, so our Vanguard is getting a crit and +1 drive now. We put a trigger back with Promptly Worker, and then we attack with triple drive. We get a heal trigger, and we get a crit. So our opponent just takes 3 damage and loses. So this is kind of what I'm talking about. Like triple drive, like the only thing that carries this deck through, honestly, is triple drive just being like busted, because obviously that's why OTT is good, because the more triggers you check in standard, the more OP it is. It's a lot harder to for your opponent to mitigate your advantage through checking triggers in standard rather than it is in premium. But our third game is against Kagura as well. We actually don't go first this time, which is a miracle, but we don't actually have a good hand either, so that's not a miracle. But we use Wedge Move skill, we drew a card, and then we have to ride Nabu. We attack with Nabu, but we got a critical. Our opponent rides Dragonic Overlord and attacks us. He gets no triggers. We get a Mystery Flare, and then he attacks us again, and we G-assist, and we don't get our grade 3, so we just attack into the rear guard. But we do get Lost Legend on the second time around, which is not terrible at all. It's just one of those things that comes with this deck. Like, you're gonna have to G-assist sometimes, and you're gonna whiff sometimes. Like, it's honestly just part of the deck. But we do ride Lost Legend finally. We use the skills, and we go into Mystery Flare while it has 8. So we attack for 13, our opponent takes it, and then we attack with our triple drive. We get a draw trigger, we draw, we attack for 23, and then we re-ride Lost Legend at the end of the turn. He rides Novell. He uses Novell skill actually, which we had a PG, so it just turns out to be completely useless for him. If I were him, I would not have done that, but that's okay. We go into Lipid, use Lost Break. Mystery Flare's at 16, so we do get 10k to 6 of our units. Unfortunately, we only have 2 units on the board, so we attack for 43. It does make our opponent waste their entire hand though, and we PG. He chooses not to use Novell skill, then he attacks for 28, and then he attacks for 31. We guard with 2 crits. We use Lipid skill, and I literally just guarded the way that I did last turn. I overguarded so that I could have Lipid and reach 19 with Mystery Flare. And as soon as I reached 19 and I showed into Mystery Flare, my opponent just scooped. I continued swinging after my opponent left just to see what I would have gotten. I would have gotten a heal and a crit, and then I would have redid my turn. So that was like an indefinite win, even if my opponent healed out of it, because once you start a new turn, the trigger power from your previous turn goes away. So he would have to 6 damage heal, like, I think twice to even have a chance of winning. But yeah, that was game 3. And that's our FutureFight Vanguard video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like on the video. Comment down below letting me know what you think about this deck and some techs that you've been playing around with to make this deck good or bad in your opinion. My personal opinion of this deck is that I would give it probably about a 6 or 7 out of 10. It's decent, but like the running weird grade ratios sometimes can really mess up the flow of the deck and how well it consistently performs, and I'm all about consistency, so that's why I gave it the rating I did. But that's purely my opinion. You guys give me your opinion down below. Be sure to subscribe and check out the Patreon if you're interested in supporting the channel a little further. With that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.